Have you ever wondered what a White House is really focused on? You know, beyond the day-to-day headlines? Well, one of the best ways to figure that out is to look at the paper trail. In this explainer, we're going to do just that. We're unpacking one single week of official communications, from December 1st to the 5th, 2025, to see what the documents themselves tell us.
So, that's really the big question here, isn't it? If you take this whirlwind of press releases, fact sheets, and proclamations, can you piece together a clear picture of an administration's true agenda? Well, let's dive in and see what we find.
All right, so here's how we're going to break it all down. We've sorted the week's news into 5 big themes. We'll start with the economy, then hit health and foreign policy, and then swing back to the domestic agenda. And to wrap it all up, we'll look at the sheer volume of stuff that got signed in just 5 days.
Okay, first up, the American economy. This week we saw some pretty big announcements that hit everything from huge industry regulations all the way down to new savings accounts for families. Now, to really get one of the biggest economic stories of the week, we need to talk about something called CAFE standards. It sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. These are the federal rules, been around since the 70s, that tell car makers how good the gas mileage needs to be across their entire fleet of new cars.
So, the administration's announcement on this was framed in a really specific way. The official fact sheet basically said the previous rules were an unrealistic backdoor mandate for electric vehicles. Their new policy, they argue, is a reset, bringing the standards back to a level that regular gas and diesel cars can actually meet.
And the price tag they're putting on this change? It's a big one. The administration is projecting that this move will save American families a whopping $109 billion over the next 5 years. The core argument is that the tougher standards were just making new cars way too expensive.
But the economic news wasn't just about big industry. Moving from the factory floor to the family budget, another major announcement was the rollout of a brand new savings program for kids, which they're calling Trump accounts.
So here's the nuts and bolts of how these accounts are supposed to work. It's really a mix of public and private money. The government kicks things off with a $1,000 seed contribution for kids born in a specific 4-year window. Then, families can chip in up to $5,000 a year. And on top of all that, there's a huge philanthropic gift from Michael and Susan Dell that'll add an extra $250 for millions of kids in lower and middle-income neighborhoods.
All right, let's shift gears now and talk about national health policy. This week brought a couple of key directives on some really sensitive topics, including childhood vaccine schedules.
And that was one of the biggest moves of the week, for sure. A formal presidential memorandum came out ordering a complete review of the recommended childhood vaccine schedule here in the United States.
Now, to understand why they're doing this, you just have to look at this table from their own fact sheet. It lays out their core argument pretty clearly. It shows that as of early 2025, the U.S. recommends vaccines for 18 different diseases, which they call a high outlier compared to other developed countries like Germany, Japan, and Denmark.
So, what's the stated goal? Well, the memorandum itself puts it this way. The point is to study what these other countries are doing, and if their approach is better, to update the U.S. schedule to match what the administration calls the best scientifically supported medical advice in the world.
Okay, from health policy at home, let's zoom out to the world stage. A really significant proclamation this week was all about America's foreign policy, with a laser focus on our own backyard, the Western Hemisphere.
Now, to get what's happening now, we've got to take a quick step back in time, way back to 1823 and the Monroe Doctrine. For 200 years, this has been a pillar of U.S. foreign policy. It's basically a message to the rest of the world, stay out of the Americas.
In this week, the administration pulled that history right into the present day, announcing what it's calling a Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. It's being framed as a modern-day renewal of that promise of American leadership in the region.
And they're saying this isn't just talk. The proclamation points to a bunch of specific actions they see as backing this up. Things like restoring U.S. access to the Panama Canal, taking on narco-terrorist networks, and locking in new trade deals with several countries in Central and South America.
Okay, let's bring our focus back home and look at the domestic agenda. The week was also packed with communications about the media, immigration enforcement, and some key appointments. So one of the more, let's say, eye-catching announcements was the launch of a new media bias portal. According to the White House, the whole point of this portal is to fight what it calls the baseless lies and left-wing lunacy of the media, and they're asking Americans to send in examples.
And they really doubled down on that message. I mean, the language here is, well, it's not subtle.
It's a very direct challenge to news organizations declaring an end to what the administration calls the media's control of the narrative.
Switching gears a bit, but still on the domestic front, another official communication put a spotlight on a specific immigration and customs enforcement operation up in Minneapolis called Operation Metro Surge.
And the way the White House framed this operation was all about public safety. The official article they put out went into detail about the criminal records of some of the people who were removed, citing convictions for pretty serious crimes like domestic violence, assault on a peace officer, and criminal sexual conduct.
All right, for our last section, let's pull the lens back a bit. Instead of looking at themes, let's just look at the raw pace of activity, the day-by-day rundown of what actually got signed into law or proclaimed.
And this timeline, wow, it really gives you a sense of just how much happens in a few short days. You've got a mix of absolutely everything here. Huge policy announcements like the CAFE standards, ceremonial duties like honoring a fallen soldier, signing bipartisan bills into law, and just the regular business of government like sending judicial nominees to the Senate. It's a real snapshot of all the different fronts a White House is fighting on at once.
Which really brings us to a final thought. Any week in the White House is this incredible mix of policy, ceremony, and communication, all happening at the same time. And when you see it all laid out like this, it kind of makes you step back and wonder, out of all of this, which of these actions, the big policy swing, the symbolic gesture, the sharp-elbowed message, which one is going to be the thing we're still talking about years from now?